How's the day been? Has it been a little bit hectic or?
Well, yeah, I mean, been a bit of a whirlwind. We're supposed to do some more dates after tonight. You guys are based in Glasgow, aren't you?
Yeah, so I was supposed to be coming to the show tonight, but then I think that's all.
Yeah,
done.
sorry about that. It's all just starting to get a little bit too real, and we're running the gauntlet trying to get all the shows finished, but yeah, we sort of just realised that we had to go home.
Yeah,
It's even more serious.
I mean, with all the borders and stuff kind of starting to close at the minute, it's getting a bit
Well,
frightening.
we're gonna have to isolate for 14 days when we get back to Australia.
Really, because you've been in the country and could have been exposed to
Well,
it.
look, I kind of stopped reading about everything because it was getting on my nerves. But the Australian government has just put a law in place that anybody returning as an Australian citizen from overseas travel or business ventures have to isolate upon return for 14 days at least.
Man,
It's going to be interesting. Yeah.
yeah. So are you guys like flying out straight away pretty much? You try to get back as soon as possible?
Well, yeah, we were going to go to Glasgow tonight. We're in Manchester this morning, and then we thought if we do the show tonight, then we'll have what is it? What's the drive from Glasgow to London? Like 10 hours or something, 8 hours?
Yeah, at least probably like 9-10. Yeah.
Yeah, so we would have had to do a 10-hour drive and then catch be on planes for 2 days.
Man.
So we thought we'd just come straight back to London and yeah, we'll go.
Yeah, I mean it's probably for the best. How are things in Australia at the minute? 'Cause remember the last time we spoke, the bushfires and everything were kind of raging. Have they kind of calmed down a bit or?
Yeah, I mean it's not in the media as much. I think that a lot of the fires have calmed down, and we haven't had as much of it. It's been really interesting because I mean I don't speak for the last 2 weeks because I've been over here, but the summer has been a lot cooler than usual. Usually during March it's real fucked. It's like 40 degrees. The Fringe Festival's on. It's really hot, but it's been pretty mild. So it's probably nice because it's given all of our people in regional communities a bit of relief.
Yeah. When did you guys do the last record? Because I remember you were saying that you did it in a heatwave when you recorded it.
When did we record the last record?
Yeah, because it was in the middle of a heatwave when you recorded that, wasn't it? Like a summer heatwave in
Well,
Australia.
is that this time last year?
Ah, right, yeah.
In Adelaide. Yeah, actually this exact time last year. We would have been starting in a few days. And yeah, it was awful weather. Really bad.
Yeah.
So,
One of the things I was interested to ask about actually, just to start off, was coronavirus itself and kind of how that will impact you being in a band at the moment in the music industry. Can you kind of see the impact of it at the moment, or obviously I mean it's cancelled the tour, but do you know how it's going to impact you in the future yet, or?
yeah, well, we've got a regional tour in Australia booked in for late April through all of May. We were supposed to play a bunch of festivals as soon as we got back from this UK trip. The week after in Brisbane, and then the week after that in Sydney. And I mean, they at this point they're still going ahead, but for the first one, we were supposed to still be in isolation. So I'm not sure if we're going to make it to that one because the government are imposing fines for people that break I don't know what you call the isolation code or whatever.
Man, yeah.
But and then we're supposed to do Splendor in the Grass later in the year. I'm not really sure what's going to happen with that. But,
yeah, it's a massive Australian festival, isn't it?
Yeah. The impact on the economy in general is going to be quite interesting to track. But yeah, music, I mean, for bands, touring is your lifeblood because that's how you make your money. You sell tickets and you sell merchandise at the shows, and especially for someone from Australia trying to crack the UK market in a way. It's been a bit of a stinger for us.
Yeah.
Just really poor timing. But I mean, a lot of bands from Australia are suffering the same thing.
Well,
So yeah, I think the music industry is going to take a really big hit on this one, and it's going to be. I think festivals are going to probably suffer the worst, big festivals. But if you want to take something positive from that, it's probably going to be good for bands because more people will come to your shows. Because it's hard to sell tickets to things now because people just go to festivals and do it all in 1 or 2 days or over a weekend in camp. so it's hard to sell tickets to your tours. But yeah, well, so, I mean, it's just a waiting game, I guess. See what happens.
Yeah, it's hard to say what's going to happen. I mean, I guess it kind of ties into the record a wee bit as well, because obviously you used to cut an album last year called Doomsday Ballad. Do you think the themes of that record may become a wee bit more prominent now, or how do you think it's kind of affected people's perspective of it?
Yeah, it's really interesting, a lot of the themes that we addressed at the time, the lyrical content that we were sort of wanting to write about, have started to come true. Which is, it's really, we found out today, which, I mean, we kind of found it amusing at first, but then it's also sad. There's a guy called Richard Wilkins in Australia who's this famous TV presenter, and he is part of one of our lyrics, and he was just recently diagnosed with coronavirus today. And yeah, so I don't know. A lot of stuff is just coming to light, and you know, we sang a lot about the landscape of Australia and the country in general, and you know, then the bushfires hit, and now this, and I don't know, Doomsday is in the name of the album, so I guess it relates to part of what we saw the future of the world that we live in becoming.
Did you write it as a prediction, or?
Sorry?
Did you write it as like a prediction? Did you kind of write it thinking this was going to happen?
Oh, well, no, we were just writing about what we were seeing at the time. I mean, that's why it's kind of no surprise that shit is just absolutely going bananas at the moment. We're probably going to experience another global financial crisis.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they're predicting, isn't it?
Airlines are going bust. Banks are going to struggle. The stock market's plummeting. Industry as a whole is just really fucked, and people are dying. So it might just be a coincidence that this might just be evolution doing its thing. And yeah, I guess it's just it kind of feels, it does feel apocalyptic, and it feels like we're in war times. And mentioning war, I hope that, you know, something as tragic as war doesn't become a byproduct of the mentality of the people post-COVID, because I think that, you know, I can't see the governments being able to support a lot of the small businesses going bust. I think people will become very jaded and angry, even more angry than they already are. And yeah, I can just see it not being a very positive outcome. So yeah, that's sort of where my head's at. It's all very confusing.
How does that affect what you're writing musically? Do you think good music comes out of a bad time? Do you think it has any impact on that, or?
Well, I was going to say, art and music is the one thing that you can rely on in times like this. They're the one thing that can pull you out of it and provide you with small glimpses of happiness and positivity for, you know, whether it's a span of 3 minutes of a song or an hour and a half for a movie, or, you know, you can't go to an art gallery at the moment, so I don't know. A lot of things live online, like music and art, that might be able to pull people out of these desperate times. So
yeah, can I use it as an escape?
That's one place that people can turn to.
Yeah, it is a good escape. I mean, one of the things I picked up in your kind of music and your lyrics as well, although a lot of the time you're addressing these darker topics, there's quite a lot of humour in them. I mean, like Piss Christ in the albums, the lyrics in that are quite entertaining. What do you feel are the advantages of having humour, like in your lyrics and your music?
I guess that's just a reflection of who we are as people. I don't know, we do find humour in morbidity sometimes. I mean, there's a time and a place for humour as well. There's obviously a line that you shouldn't cross.
Yeah.
For certain things. But when you're talking about Donald Trump or Boris Johnson or our Prime Minister Scott Morrison, all these, you know, white male leaders that run the world, there's room for humour, I think. It's also important that not everything's doom and gloom when you're providing commentary on something or lyrical analysis. There should be room for a bit of lightheartedness, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, you did a little bit as well with Bogan Pride, like on the first album, where you kind of took. Well, actually, could you stop? Like, what is a bogan for someone who's not from Australia?
Well, a bogan many forms, but they're perceived as, I mean, there's all different types of bogans in Australia. It's just perceived as someone that's a bit of a feral, really.
Yeah.
Or someone, the perception of someone that might carry an ideology that isn't in keeping with the ideologies of people that are aligned to the left. They may be right-wing in their opinion, have racist values, but, you know, may also be cashed up and just that live a very different lifestyle in very different places. But that's not like it's funny because a lot of our audiences would probably identify as part of that faction of society. And It's not something that we're putting ourselves on some pedestal of, or, you know, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but we're not having a crack. It's just observation. And that notion of like being proud of where you come from and the things you think and feel, and where that sits in society as opposed to other people's ideals. I mean, it's hard to explain if you're not from Australia.
Are they? Would you like consider them like a problem? Is it just part of life almost?
It was also based on there was a group of surfers and skateboarders. There's a big surfing community on the east coast of Australia called the Boys. And there were these big riots that took place in Cronulla. I can't remember the year that took place, but it was a huge issue at the time because it was pretty much like the lower socioeconomic surfing community in white Australia versus the Lebanese and Muslim community at the same time. And it really did drive a bit of a wedge between the two. And Australia, I'm not sure what it's like in the UK, but it really does suffer from anti-Islam, anti-Muslim sort of bashing at times. You know, white Australia just has a very dark history, and some of it rears its ugly head at times. And that was one instance in particular. So that was part of the themes. That was sort of the theme that drove the lyrics of the song. You know, patriotism at its worst.
Is that something that's gotten better since you released the first album, or is it still very much quite a big problem?
I think it's getting better. People are more aware, more tolerant. The conversation is taking place to drive that mentality out of our society. But I think it's probably always going to exist. Look, I don't really know. That's just what I think. And I hate it. But and I think it's important for people to keep writing songs about it, or, you know, create art. About things like that. And it's also potentially a generational thing. I'm not really sure. Poor values and taught to impressionable youths by people who have experienced an interesting history in an interesting country. That is what Australia is.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
With writing a song about something like that, are you trying to draw attention to it and trying to make a point of it and, you know, spread the awareness of it and that sort of thing? Or what's the purpose of yeah? Why did you decide to write a song like that?
Because that's what we believe.
Yeah.
And it would feel fake to not. I mean, we also have other songs that aren't, you know, that are about love or depression or just the dystopian nature of the world as a whole. They're all different themes in our music. I guess they, you know, some songs just align themselves to deeper, more intrinsic value of evaluation of where you sit in society and how it runs.
Will you pick a topic or a theme and decide to write a song around that, or how does a song like that begin?
Oh, not so much anymore. A lot of those songs that you're probably referencing were written by the lyrics were written by Alex, who's, you know, a really great lyricist who I've learnt a lot from. I'm probably only really at the point now where I'm starting to get more lyrics on songs because it took me the best part of a decade to, you know, sort of find what worked for me in terms of writing. But it's probably a question you have to ask him. Unfortunately, he's on a plane right now back to Australia. I mean, sometimes things like that just align themselves to. I mean, the term bogan pride and the things behind the lyrics lend themselves to the brutality of the chord structure and how we wanted the song to sound. You know, it'd be a very different type of song if we were singing about going to the burger joint and, you know, dancing with a girl to that type of music. So I guess, yeah, maybe you do have it in mind all the time, but we don't really structure songs. Like, we don't have any sort of formula that's rigid where we have to have a theme before we go into it. It's just sort of whatever happens.
Yeah. You mentioned there's how Alex had written quite a lot of the lyrics for those songs. In terms of the new album, are you contributing more to the lyrics yourself now, or are the newer songs kind of written by yourself in part as well? Or what's the dynamic like there? Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I definitely had more of a part to play in the lyrics, but I always, you know, he's sort of my barometer. He sort of would be like the gatekeeper of what does get through, and I respect that because I think he's good at what he does. But and you know, I also rang him in at times as well. But we spend a lot more time writing together for the last album over, you know, a 2-year period. We did a lot of home demos at my house or in studios around Australia, and just spend a lot of time. It's interesting when you create a bit of a lyrical and songwriting partnership with someone.
Yeah,
it's hard to do. I feel like it's nice to have that person as a sounding board for your creativity and your art, because it's a very vulnerable experience creating music. Because you never know whether it's good. Even once you've finished it and released it, you still, you know, have those moments where you look back and you're like, oh fuck, was it good? Is it, you know, a bit naff? But yeah, we on the last album we definitely spent a lot more time working on things together and lyrics. So yeah.
You notice like a difference in those songs that you've written together compared to the ones that are written by yourselves?
I think part of the relationship, you know what the other person's going to like, so maybe you tailor it a little bit to them. Because when he's writing melodies, for instance, he needs to consider the way that I'm going to sing it, or the way that I'm going to phrase things, and I also need to consider the way that he's going to write guitar lines over them, or, you know, how they're going to be produced. So, yeah, I mean, I guess there's sort of, if you're looking at a Venn diagram, there's probably some crossover, which, allows a bit of an amalgamation of the two types of songwriting to become one.
I'm interested as well, like, when did you first realise that you could trust each other when you were songwriting, you could work well with each other in that kind of way? Because you obviously speak about it being quite a special relationship in that sense that you can work together like that.
Well, early on, I didn't really know anything about good music, so he taught me everything I knew. He's a little bit older than me, and we met at our footy club after a game. There's this, I don't know if we spoke about this last time that we were together, but there's this area at the back of our football club, the pub, it's called the Barn, where everyone would go and just get shit-faced after the games on Saturday nights and eat schnitzels and drink beer and play pool. And we met there and we started talking about music. And as a result of that, he took me to this, he bought me a ticket to Newcastle, and we got some tickets to this mini festival called Winter Chills Festival, and there was just these awesome like punk bands playing. Just awesome. Like, I was just exposed to this side of music that I didn't even know existed, of like underground labels, underground bands, blah blah blah. And from there, it had the flow-on effect where it was just sort of opened up to this whole new world.
Do you recall what kind of bands were playing at that festival?
Sorry, mate?
Do you recall what kind of bands were playing at the festival when you went there?
Oh, there was a band called Oscar and Martin. There was a band called Kurt Purpose, who was this awesome punk band. I don't even know if they're still going. They're from Brisbane. Another one called Kitchen Floor. A band called Bitch Prefect. I don't know. Yeah, it was just a different world to me. I was used to listening to like Bob Dylan or like So Fresh CDs that you get at the server, or like Van Morrison or something.
Was it the energy of these bands that kind of struck you, or what was it that hit you?
Well, what hit me was that it was so shit. It was so awesome. were people that sort of kind of didn't know what they were doing, but they had really a really good basis of taste in their influences. But I only know that now after listening to all of the bands that influenced bands like them. So, but yeah, at the time I just didn't really know what I was watching.
Yeah. It's interesting you mention like being into Dylan and stuff as well, because I hadn't really thought of that in relation to you, but now that you've said it, songs like Harry Station, they kind of come to mind when you speak about being a fan of Dylan.
About Dylan?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, Bob Dylan's a huge influence on Alex and I in all facets. He's just one of the great artists of all time.
Yeah.
And had the ability to always reinvent himself and maintain taste and just do it well.
Is that something you've maybe tried to do a wee bit on the album as well? Reinvent yourselves, because you've gone into the studio with Bert Reid and stuff, and you've taken kind of a different approach to it, as opposed to like the first two albums. It feels quite different in that sense. Just like the sound of the record.
A part of the. Sorry, what was the question?
Do you see yourself with this album like kind of trying to reinvent yourself a bit with the new album, like what you're obviously speaking about Dylan? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was time to move to a different track and like just sort of reset. With there's been two-year period, which it really isn't much, but in the modern landscape of music, it is a long time.
Yeah.
Because people want products, every fucking month. But a part of the reinventing process, for lack of a better word, was the demo process that we had, which was I'll call them pre-demos, which would be like taking a phone recording idea, creating parts at our very shitty home studios on GarageBand or Logic, and then moving to doing them with the rest of the band at a semi-decent studio into the demo process, and then showing them to Burke and Jack Ladder, who also assisted on the production side of the album. So, but it definitely was a deliberate shift because we wanted to create something a little bit more produced and considered in terms of like how the songs are structured and written, tones, and everything as a whole. We're in the first two albums, we just wanted to go into the studio and record them live, and capture the live band sound. But what's interesting about it is we actually, once we deconstructed all the songs for the third album, which is, the album that we sort of wanted to reinvent ourselves, we actually ended up playing them live as a band more than we did for the first two albums. So the sound that you hear on the third album is kind of more us live than the first two.
Yeah.
Which is kind of ironic because that's what we wanted to steer away from. But Burke was insistent that we track live. So, some of those songs would have taken 40 takes.
40?
It was really stressful. But doing that just makes you better players of your instruments and better songwriters because you really, really go deep. And it made me a better singer as well because he really pushed me. So.
How, obviously with the techniques you're speaking about there for recording it, how do you think that affects the energy of the album, and how do you feel like the energy of the new record differs to the previous two?
Well, I just think it allows itself to be played live and sound the same. Whereas we always struggle to play slow songs live. Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting question. Yeah, I'm not really sure how to answer that one.
Yeah. To take it back as well to songs like Harry Station and Cannonball, well, the kind of slower ones, the more contemplative ones in the album. Why do you think you were driven to have those songs in that style and present them in that way?
Well, Harry Station's an interesting one because that was originally more of a jangly driving song in the same sort of similar vein to Side Pretty or the Go-Betweens. But it just, Burke sort of broke it right down and wants to do an acoustic ballad. That's one song that we're sort of has never really sit right with me, to be honest, because the finished product of it is really cool and awesome. But I would have loved to have seen it played differently and how it would have. I don't know. I feel like that song could have been a single or something. If it was produced a little bit differently. But when you're in the studio and you don't know what the single is going to be at what time, you're just working on them individually and doing the best that you can with the time you have and the sounds that you can pull. But a lot of people use Harry Station. A lot of people really like Harry Station, and it's it's an interesting one.
Would you ever consider reimagine it live and play it differently live and try and play it in that style of like a traditional kind of Bad Dreams single? Would you ever think about doing that? Or?
I'd love to. That's just kind of not the band we are. I think you have to be a certain type of jammy band. You know, I think that like bands like King Gizzard, for instance, can sort of do whatever the fuck they want and have like they can play 10 different genres of music and nobody would bat an eyelid. But we've just sort of like found our niche, which we're not like. I'd like to one day break out of it, but it's just not the type of band we are. I don't feel that can do something like that. We try to do it with some songs, but you know, live we just almost feel like really compelled to play loud and hard and fucking go for it. Yeah. So to be like delicate and considered in the approach to the live sound is really it's always been really difficult for us. Having said that, I would like to explore that option if, you know, we don't all die of coronavirus and never play gigs again.
Did you like go into like the records with aims and ideas of where you want to explore and what you want to achieve with the record and what you want to do with it?
Well, we knew that Burke was a good producer, so we knew that he was going to hear something in the song and change them. And we also got Jack Ladder on board because for the same reasons. And he's a real whiz on instruments. We call him like fiddle fingers because he's always in the studio just like playing with stuff all the time. So I mean, we wanted to kind of leave it in there. We just had the demos, which were, you know, now that I look back, very rough forms of songwriting with no real structure. But that was kind of just how we did it at that point in time. So we just wanted to like give them the free rein to pick the tracks that we gave them the option of 20 tracks and they had to whittle them down to 10. And then, you know, they sort of just had free rein to pick the songs and then change them up as they saw fit. So yeah, I mean, I guess by choosing them as the producers, that's what we were doing.
I saw as well that you're about to go and start working on the next record. Are you going to do the same thing again where you demo a heap of tracks and kind of figure it out that way? Yeah, we've already started. Doing some demos. We actually did them this week in Brighton. We did a few rehearsal days in Brighton, and then we went to London and did some of the demos with Rory Atwell, who played in Test Bicycles back in the day, and has also done a bunch of stuff with Die, and he produces and writes music for film and TV now. Yeah. We went and did 4 tracks with him, and already it was a bit of a lightning in a bottle moment with him. We found a real connection with him. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but we're going to try and work with him in the future. And I think that we might even try and produce this next record ourselves because I just feel like that's the right move. Do you feel like that's something you've maybe been building toward, like producing something yourself? Yeah, we just feel like we're ready to do that with the help of, you know, someone like Rory. I don't know who it's going to be with, to be honest with you. It might be with Burke again, but we haven't really decided because, you know, given the circumstances, everything's sort of up in the air of how the next year or so is going to pan out. But, we've just been talking and we've been thinking that it's probably time to do it ourselves. We've been at it for almost a decade. We think we've probably learned a thing or two, you know, with a good engineer, pulling some good tones. We feel like we can sort of understand ourselves and our own music and our lyrics better than, you know, a producer coming in at this point in time. You know, we've needed producers in the past to guide us through it, but I think we might give this one a crack. I mean, I guess you know your sound better than anyone. Well, yeah. The one thing I will say is that working with Burke helped us realise that. You know, he's a fantastic producer and an absolute workhorse and a guru. And he really allowed us, you know, it sort of opened up different doors and unlocked different gates that we didn't know existed in terms of what we
harboured within ourselves as songwriters and musicians. So I think, we wouldn't have been in this mindset if we had never worked with Burke. But which is interesting. So it's like you think you probably if you do something well with someone, then there's a positive relationship and an artistic process, then you probably just go back with them again. But I just feel like we can do it ourselves, and I think we're ready for that challenge.
Have you ever gone back and revisited any of the demos from the last album and looked at taking them onto this one, or are they stay in the
very few?
Yeah,
I've got them all. I've listened to them all so many times that I've got them in my head, so you know what's going to fit.
yeah.
I mean, and that's the thing. Like, you could rework old demos and ideas, or you could just start fresh and create new ideas. And I think that's sort of where we're at. I think we're ready to just, do something completely new that that's still us and is a representation of who we are as people and songwriters. So.
Why did Cannonball end up on the last album then? Because I know it was written 9 years ago or something. How did it end up coming back and working its way onto the last record?
Well, that's good. You know your shit. It just wasn't ever ready, and I'm glad we waited, because I don't think the producer for the first two albums, Mark Opitz, could have done what he couldn't have done what Burke and Jack did with it. They turned it into exactly what it was meant to be, and I'm glad we sat on that song.
Yeah.
And there's probably other examples of that too. Not that I can think of off the top of my head, but Cannonball was a really interesting one. And I'm really that's probably my favourite off the last album, actually.
Yeah, it's a great tune. It's a really good song.
Thanks, appreciate that.
Do you ever think is there anything you feel like you maybe you kind of wish that you'd waited and you hadn't put it out on one of the records and you kind of left it a bit longer to kind of marinate before going back to it, or are you pretty confident with everything you stuck out?
Do you mean songs that already exist on one of the three albums?
Yeah, obviously how you were saying that Cannonball wouldn't have been the same had you put it out on one of the first records. Are there any that you feel you kind of wish you maybe had waited and came back to later on?
Not off the top of my head. Maybe Gallows on the end of the last album.
Yeah.
But also there are songs that just exist in a time and a place, and they need to be done then and there. And I think maybe it's like the inner songwriter in you or whatever that just is like, no, that has to be on the album, and or the inner songwriter in you is just like, no, we'll hold tight on this one. So I mean, probably all of them really. But then if that was the model that you took, then you'd never release music.
Yeah.
You always want more time. But actually, maybe there is one song, but by my side, I think it's on Gutful. I would have liked to have really tried to nut that one out over a few years. I feel like it could have been something a little bit bigger than what it ended up being, but it is what it is.
Yeah, you learn from it, I guess.
What's that, sorry?
I'm saying at least you kind of learn from it, you can learn from that going forward and apply it to future songs. Yeah.
We weren't to know that at the time, because we didn't know. You're a byproduct of the things you learn across a great deal of time. So
I wanted to ask a wee bit actually about your Like a Virgin, the last one you did before I Let You Go, because you covered Black Fella White Fella in it, which is that quite a big song in Australia? Because I wasn't familiar with that before I saw you guys cover it, but it was a really interesting kind of take on it.
It is, yeah. I mean, to be honest, I don't know how big it is, because it was recorded by this band called Libertines Band from Northern Territory. They toured early on with Midnight Oil. I think they were actually signed to the Midnight Oil record label, and it was Alex's idea, because we got offered the chance to do Like a Virgin, which is a big deal in Australia. We actually wanted to originally do R.E.M. Everybody Hurt. We thought that's probably one of the last rock indie classics that hasn't been done on the format of Like a Virgin. We thought we could do it well, do it justice. And the radio station came back and said that they didn't want us to do that. And we're like, well, what can we do that's poignant and of the time? And Alex said we should do Black Fella White Fella by Warrumpy Band, and I was a little bit hesitant at first, but it turned out to be a really good idea, and I think we did it well. And yeah, I think we did it tastefully somewhat. We had members from Mumbarli band who were from Numbulwar up in NT, and Emily Wuramara. I think she lives in Brisbane, in Tasmania now, but she's originally from Brisbane, but she's related to the guys from Mumbarli. Yeah, it was sort of one of the highlights of musical careers to just be a part of something like that, and people in Australia really liked it. All the listeners of Triple J really liked it, and yeah, I think we did a good job.
Yeah. Was it Peter Garrett? Was that who you got in as well?
Oh yeah, that's right.
So,
we got Peter Garrett on board as well.
Who I hadn't heard of him before, but I looked him up. Who is he? Because he a politician as well, a musician. Who is Peter Garrett?
Well, he's been since the early '80s. He's been Midnight Oil has been a real political figure of the band in Australia since the late '70s, and Peter dipped his toes into political issues from the get-go in their band's gestation, I think. And then he became a politician for the Labor Party in, it would have been the 2000s, I can't remember the exact year.
Yeah.
But he had a bit of a fall from grace with something that happened. We don't need to go into that, actually.
Yeah, it's fine.
So, he's a really good guy, and as a band, they have great morals, and we asked him to do it, and Australian Indigenous culture is something that he's extremely passionate about, and he really drives the cause home time and time again, and he was willing to offer his time on that given day, and we're really appreciative that he did. And it probably gave the message of the song and a lot of legs. It's important for that song to come out at that time as well, because there was a young man in the middle of Australia who was murdered by police officers, a young Indigenous Australian man. That happened in the same week. Not that we were to know that. We were doing it within the same week, but it was a good experience. Sorry, I'm starting to ramble. I've had half a bottle of wine talking to you.
It must have, I imagine it's been a long day.
I'm starting to get a stuttery.
I mean, I imagine it's been a long day travelling all day. I've got one left before you go. It's actually, this question's actually drink related as well.
What's that?
This question's drink related as well, because I know that
Go for it.
you guys are kind of often referenced as like a pub rock band. With your music, and you kind of reference that there's aspects of it of the genre. So I wondered, what's your pint of choice when you go into a pub? Guinness.
I love it.
Good shout. I like a pint of Guinness.
Well, yeah, a few years ago, probably hear me pouring the wine. I went to the doctor because I had stomach cramps, and he said you're drinking too much beer and your gluten enzyme count is through the roof. So I stopped drinking beer and I went to wine. So I've never really been a fan of beer since, or something just about the taste of my mouth wasn't very nice. But coming to the UK 3 times in the last year, found a real affiliation with my palate and Guinness. So I love that drink.
Do you have a pint of Tennents as well when you were in Scotland?
Oh, I did. I think the other guys did. I think I did. Did I have one with you? I might have had one with
Actually, yeah, I think we did have a pint of Tennents, yeah.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, I forgot that. I remember that now.
There we go.
Because you were going to see the Libertines on the Sunday as well, weren't you?
Going to the what?
You were going to see the Libertines on the Sunday as well, weren't you?
Yeah. We went to Barrowland and saw Libertines play.
Nice one.
Which was really interesting. Pete was off his head.
Yeah, I was at that show as well. Was that the show?
Oh, did you go?
Yeah, because the guy got the mic stand chucked at him.
Yes,
yeah.
That's right.
That was a wild show, yeah.
I mean, I've seen them a few times now, and it was good. They sounded awesome.
Yeah.
And that venue is amazing.
Had you been at the Barrowlands before?
I haven't, no.
Matt, it's good.
I think it's how many cats do you reckon that venue is?
I've heard a mixed range. I think it's like 1,900, 2,000, kind of around that.
So I swear it's the only 2,000 cat venue that does cash only.
Yeah, it's pretty shit. It's annoying.
I had to go across the road and get money out of the ATM to buy some beer.
Yeah.
But it was good. It was nice to see them play.
Yeah, they were very good. It's good to see them still going.
Mm.
But yeah, but thanks very much for your time this evening. I really appreciate it. And
Anytime. How's the podcast going?
it's good, man. Yeah, the podcast is, I think we're like 10. This is episode number 10. We're like 10 episodes in, but I really enjoy it because you kind of get the opportunity to have a bit more of a conversation with someone, as opposed to like an interview format. You can just have a bit of a chat.
Yeah, when it goes a bit longer, for sure.
Yeah. Hopefully get one done if you guys are back here later in the year doing some more UK dates.
You should come over to Big Sound in Australia. It takes place in Brisbane. You can just like spend the week in Brisbane and interview as many bands as you need.
If I had the money to go over to where did you say it was? Brisbane?
In Brisbane, yeah. Look it up, Big Sound.
If I had the money, I might make over one day, but when I get the money, I'll be over to Australia. Because I'd love to go. I'd love to go over and see Australia.
Yeah, we'll see how this whole COVID thing ends up.
Yeah, fingers crossed it clears up by the end of the year.
Yeah.
But man, well, safe you must
buddy.
be safe travels when it comes.
Thank you very much. Thanks so much for having me on the podcast. Really appreciate it. Thanks for the support.
No, thanks very much again, man. Love talking to you. It's always a good chat.
Bye, buddy.
Right,
Bye.
cheers, man. Bye.
Thanks.